Long before I ever sat down to write this book, the unfairness of how innovation and access are distributed among and favor certain communities over others haunted me. After leaving my hometown of Seattle at 18, drifting across several mid-size and big cities over the years, visiting home was always deflating. First, there was the excitement of discovering an old new city and its latest fanfare of restaurants and elevated shopping experiences, newly installed light rail systems, music venues, and galleries. But when I returned to my old neighborhoods or checked in with old friends and community folks, it was clear that they had not been benefactors of much of the city's growth. Through the years, in my work reporting on innovation and lack thereof in communities of color, I've been frequently reminded of the unfairness of progress. Personally, perhaps by way of proximity, I was able to access opportunities to take part in learning the language, skills, and social networks of technology throughout my childhood and teen years. These small, yet significant slivers of access empowered me to position myself for a future that would be largely shaped by discoveries and advances neither myself nor my family could have imagined were on the horizon. But those same resources that empowered me were not widely accessible to the vast majority of my peers, let alone the neighborhoods and schools that we were raised in. The evidence of this loss of potential talent and potential for greater social and economic mobility is much more than a byproduct of the passing of time lending itself to growing up and moving out. By design, and in the vast majority of American cities boasting deep innovation centers and entrepreneurship environments, communities of color have been left behind. Essential workers, a moniker we assigned to lower-wage service workers at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, are largely made up of Black and Latinx people who remain overrepresented in these fields. As technology advances and machines and robots perform many of the tasks once executed by humans, we're left with a series of questions about how we will ensure that those who are most economically vulnerable can gain access to and learn the skills of the future. A few years ago, when I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, I was asked to sit on a conference panel with the city's workforce development leaders and other employers to discuss the future of work in Charlotte and beyond. At the time, I was building up Black Tech Charlotte, a tech hub I co-founded with my partners and friends, Enovia Bedford and Frida Hendley, that provided networking and training tools to the city's rising Black tech entrepreneur community. The panel and audience gathered in the basement of Grace AME Zion Church, a historic African Methodist Episcopal Zion church built in the early 1900s, set in the neighborhood of what is today referred to as Uptown. The conference was hosted by the Charlotte chapter of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. Unlike the many fancy tech conferences and gatherings I've attended and reported on around the country over the years, this room wasn't filled with high-profile CEOs, venture capitalists, or college students who'd spent years teaching machines how to think. No, these were regular folks. They were grandparents and caregivers, deacons and truck drivers. The crowd of older men and women were curious about the new world of work, some of them visibly nervous about what that new world meant for them and their families. I'll never forget my interaction with Ms. Smith, not her real name, that day. She sat in the front row, nodding softly as the conversation ran its course, shifting between keeping her eyes locked with mine and taking notes on the piece of paper she'd retrieved from the black purse that rested in her lap. Next to her sat a slim young man who you could tell was forced to spend a Saturday morning in a place he'd rather not. During the question and answer period, Miss Smith was the first to raise her hand. She shared with us that she had lived in Charlotte her entire life and had watched the city during its many transformations, noting how she had been here before Uptown was built, when folks would have never even thought about living.